I think that ayahuasca requires us to confront the truth about ourselves. That's one of the fundamental universal experiences of anybody who has drunk the sacred visionary brew of the Amazon. And confronting the truth about yourself in absolute honesty and clarity, I think, is a useful exercise for anyone, but I think it's a particularly useful exercise for anyone who wishes to present themselves as a leader of others. I think the leadership role is one that really does call for honesty, and that is what is absolutely lacking amongst our politicians in the world today. I mean, all across the world, we have a venal class of dishonest, self-serving bureaucrats who are using the power we give them to impose themselves upon us. And I think if they were obliged to confront the truth about themselves, they might do a better job. It might well change their view, that they don't want to run for office at all. They might feel that they don't want to do that anymore. It is a life-changing experience, and it calls for inner resources of courage and determination and will to go through with an ayahuasca journey. And it does make you think about the world you live in and your place in it and your impact upon other human beings. And that's what's contrary to what they tell us about themselves. That's what's really lacking, I think, in the political class around the world today. You have to understand that we've had more than 40 years now of massively financed propaganda called the war on drugs. And ironically, we ourselves, the taxpayers around the world, have paid for that propaganda to be beamed at us. And this has been a systematic effort to persuade us that any consciousness-altering drug, other than alcohol, caffeine, or tobacco, which are all consciousness-altering drugs, of course, any consciousness-altering drug which is not channeled to us through the large pharmaceutical companies, because of course Ritalin is a consciousness-altering drug, and Seroxat is a consciousness-altering drug, and Prozac is a consciousness-altering drug. But all of those, you know, are supposed to be okay because they come to us through big pharma. But any consciousness-altering plant or substance which may have been in use in human cultures for thousands and thousands of years, such as ayahuasca, has been subjected to 40-plus years of extremely negative, demonizing propaganda, which we take in with our mother's milk. And it is extremely difficult to overcome the knee-jerk reaction to that. It's become so internalized. In a way, it's a very Orwellian world that we live in, where language is being used against us to control and manage the way that we think about things. So it's almost impossible to approach the issue of quote-unquote drugs without immediately linking it to the notion of abuse or of frivolous, irresponsible behavior, or of danger, or of threat, or of damage. All of these concepts have been added together in the propaganda of the war on drugs, and it really messes up people's thinking about what really is an extremely serious and fundamental issue of human rights, which is, do we, as adults, have the right to make decisions about what we put in our own bodies and what we experience with our own consciousness without reference to the powers of the state? Or must we seek permission from the state in order to explore our own consciousness? And that is the very unfortunate state of affairs that we find ourselves in today, where certain states of consciousness, doing no harm to others, in the privacy of one's own home or in a ceremonial shamanic circle, with reverence and respect to the universe and to nature, that such a thing is considered abhorrent and wrong, and we must not even be allowed to think about doing that. This is the way that our minds are controlled in the society we live in today, and it's so subtle and so clever and so deeply ingrained that we actually think these thoughts are coming from us, that they've not really been programmed into us. Once you get a large bureaucracy set up with a particular objective and funded with public money, that bureaucracy over a period of time becomes a self-serving, self-perpetuating entity. Any large bureaucracy will have its public relations arm. And the main function of that public relations arm is to convince the public, who fund the bureaucracy in the first place through their taxes, is to convince the public that that bureaucracy is needed and is necessary. So we have a huge investment in our society, whether through the police or various drugs control agencies or indeed the social services. We have a huge investment in our society in a world in which the use of any kind of drug is illegal and is considered to be harmful and damaging and dangerous. And huge bureaucracies, tens of thousands of jobs, are tied up in perpetuating this war on drugs. And those tens of thousands of jobs are bolstered and supported by public relations operations, again funded by ourselves, to persuade us that it's right and just and true and proper that it should be so. In such a climate where, no investment is being put into the alternative point of view, to considering, is there in fact perhaps a responsible and useful function for the things that we call drugs, which in the Amazon they don't call ayahuasca a drug. Ayahuasca is a medicine. It's an instrument and an agent of healing and of self-knowledge. But our society won't allow those terms to be applied. And I find again and again that you get these instant knee-jerk reactions. Oh, they're talking about a drug. This isn't for me. They must be in some way bad or damaged or dirty people whose thoughts may be damaging in some way to me. And the person switches off their mind instantly. And then right then, the government, the state, the big bureaucracies have won the battle. They've won it. Before any fighting was ever done, before any argument was ever engaged in, before any discussion was ever involved, they've won right there at the beginning. People just switch off their minds. That is the victory of bureaucracy.